Welcome back to another dark confession from the frozen reaches of Skyrim. Today we're pulling back the shadows on one of the most misunderstood oaths in all of Tamriel, the Nightingale Pact. The armor looked perfect when they placed it on my shoulders. The shadows welcomed me like old friends. Carlia's words about serving Nocturnal sounded almost poetic in that flickering torchlight beneath Riften. But what she didn't tell me, what they never tell you, is that becoming a Nightingale doesn't just mean serving a Daedric Prince in life. It means your soul belongs to Nocturnal forever. When you die, you don't go to Sovngarde, you don't go to the Void, you don't go to whatever afterlife you believed in. You go to the Evergloam, her realm of eternal twilight, and you serve there as you served here, forever. The shadows that give you power in life become your prison in death, and the contract you signed in blood and darkness has no expiration date, no retirement clause, no escape. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I signed my soul away in a temple beneath Riften, and the worst part is I thought I was getting a good deal. The shadows wrapped around me like silk when Carlia placed that armor over my shoulders, whispering promises of power I'd only dreamed about. I could move through darkness like I was part of it, pick any lock with a thought, disappear into twilight itself. What they didn't tell me, what Carlia glossed over with poetic words about serving the Lady of Night, was that I didn't just join an elite order of thieves. I sold my afterlife, forever. The oath seemed simple when she explained it. Protect the Twilight Sepulchre, serve Nocturnal, use these gifts however you want. A business transaction, she called it. Nothing religious or binding beyond what you'd expect. But standing there in that hidden chamber, speaking the words into the darkness with Brynjolf beside me, I felt something change. Not in the world around me, in me. Deep inside where your soul sits, where the thing that makes you you lives beneath all the blood and bone. It was like signing a contract in ink that soaks through the paper, through the table, down into the foundation of the house itself. Permanent, irreversible, Nocturnal spoke to us that night, not through a priest or a statue, but directly, her voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. She told us we were now her agents, her Nightingales, and that we'd serve her in life and death. That last part, the death part, everyone seems to skip over. Carlia mentioned it, sure, but she made it sound like an honor, like after a long life of successful thievery, we'd get to retire in some shadowy paradise, walking with darkness forever. She didn't mention we'd be working. She didn't mention the Evergloam. The dream started 3 days after I took the oath. I'd close my eyes in whatever inn I was, staying at, and find myself walking through forests I'd never seen before. Trees with bark like midnight, stretching up into a sky caught between dusk and dawn, never quite one or the other. Purple light filtering through branches that cast shadows too long, too dark, shadows that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. Buildings crumbling into earth that felt wrong underfoot, crypts with doors half open, like mouths waiting to swallow me down. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, but here's the thing. Sometimes, I wasn't entirely sure I had woken up. The boundary between sleeping and waking started feeling thinner, like tissue paper you could see through if you held it to the light. I asked Brynjolf about it once, carefully, not wanting to sound like I was having second thoughts. He said he got flashes sometimes, moments where the shadows seemed too aware, too present, but he brushed it off, said it was just the power settling in, our minds adjusting to being connected to something greater. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'm still not entirely sure if what I'm experiencing is normal for Nightingales or if Nocturnal has her hooks deeper in me than the others. Mercer Frey knew the truth. He was a Nightingale before us, one of the Trinity with Carlia and Gallus, and he broke his oath, stole the skeleton key right out of the Twilight Sepulchre, used it for his own gain, betrayed everyone who trusted him. You'd think breaking an oath with a Daedric Prince would come with immediate consequences, lightning from the sky or shadows rising up to drag you down. But Nocturnal is patient. She's the Lady of Mystery, the Empress of Shadow, and she doesn't operate on mortal timelines. Mercer had 25 years of freedom before his betrayal caught up with him, 25 years of using that key to unlock his potential, to become more than he should have been, to steal from the guild he led. And when we finally cornered him in those Dwemer ruins, when Carlia put an arrow through his throat and he fell into that flooded chamber, I felt it, a pull, like a hook catching on something deep inside my chest. For just a moment, I could have sworn I saw shadows gathering around his body, not to carry him away, but to mark him, to brand him with the same mark we all carry. Mercer might have died thinking he escaped, but his soul still belonged to Nocturnal. She doesn't let go. Gallus taught me that lesson without meaning to. When we returned the skeleton key to the Twilight Sepulchre, when I walked that pilgrim's path through trials of shadow and light, I found him there. Not alive, not really. His spirit, trapped as a Nightingale sentinel, bound to guard the very place Mercer had desecrated. He'd been murdered 25 years ago, betrayed by someone he considered a brother, and he'd spent every moment since then standing watch in that dark temple, alone. The other sentinels had gone mad when the Ebonmere closed, when Mercer took the key and severed our connection to the Evergloam. They'd forgotten who they were, become nothing but hostile shadows, defending a shrine they no longer understood. Gallus held on longer because his spirit manifested after the key was stolen, spared him from the immediate corruption. But he could feel it happening to him too, slowly, that pull toward forgetting, toward becoming nothing but shadow and duty. He told me he could feel himself slipping away, that being near the Ebonmere without it being properly opened was like drowning in slow motion. Even in death, even fulfilling his oath to guard the sepulchre, he was suffering. Is that what awaits me? An eternity of standing guard in a dark temple, watching my memories fade until I'm nothing but a hostile ghost attacking anyone who comes close. Here's what they don't tell you about Daedric oaths. They're not metaphorical. When Nocturnal said our fate awaited us in the Evergloam, she meant it literally. That realm exists, it's real, and it's where we're going when we die. Not Sovngarde if you're a Nord, not the Void if you're anyone else. The Evergloam, a plane of oblivion that exists in perpetual twilight, where shadows have weight and substance, where souls become something other than what they were. The Nightingales, who came before us, they're there now, walking those purple forests, serving Nocturnal's purposes, existing in the spaces between light and dark forever. I met Soon at the gates of Sovngarde once. Long story, involving a world-eating dragon and a lot of things that should have killed me but didn't. When he asked by what right I claimed entry to the Hall of Valor, I mentioned being a Nightingale, told him I was an agent of Nocturnal. He looked at me with something that might have been pity and said my oath bound me forever to the Daedric Prince, that being a thief gave me no right to enter those halls, that my path was already chosen. Even the Guardian of Slash, the Nordic afterlife, knew where my soul was headed, and it wasn't to feast with heroes. The power is real, I can't deny that. I move through shadows like they're part of me, like I'm swimming through darkness itself. Locks open at my touch, mechanisms that should be impossible to pick surrender without resistance. Once a day, I can wrap myself in shadow so completely that I become invisible, can walk right through a crowded market square, and no one sees me unless I want them to. I've stolen things I never could have reached before, survived situations that would have ended any normal thief. The guild is thriving again, luck flowing back into our operations like water after a drought. Nocturnal kept her end of the bargain, but the shadows follow me now even in broad daylight. I see them at the corners of my vision, moving independently, watching. Sometimes I hear whispers in them, words in a language I don't quite understand, but that makes my soul ache with recognition. The boundary between here and the Evergloam feels thinner every day, like I'm standing with one foot in each world. When I walk through darkness now, I sometimes feel like I'm walking through something through a substance that has awareness, that knows me, and is waiting patiently for me to cross over fully. Carlia seems at peace with it. She's decades older than me, been a Nightingale longer, and she talks about eventually joining Gallus in the Evergloam like it's a reunion she's looking forward to. Maybe it is, for her. Maybe having someone waiting for you on the other side makes eternal service feel less like a sentence and more like a future. But I'm starting to understand what Mercer must have felt. That moment when you realize you've traded something you can never get back for power you'll only enjoy temporarily. He tried to break free, use the skeleton key, to unlock more than just doors and chests, tried to unlock his potential, his limitations, maybe even his oath. It didn't work. Nocturnal doesn't break contracts. I stood before the Ebonmere after we returned the key, that swirling pool of shadow that serves as a doorway between our world and hers. Nocturnal spoke to me then, her voice pleased but not grateful. She said I'd performed my duty exactly as expected, that I'd fulfilled my agreement to the letter. Then she told me to drink from the Ebonmere, to receive my reward, my power as an agent of Nocturnal. The oath has been struck, she said. The die has been cast, and your fate awaits you in the Evergloam. It wasn't a warning. It was a confirmation. A reminder that the contract was sealed the moment I spoke those words in Nightingale Hall. I drank. What choice did I have? The power flooded into me like cold water, shadow made tangible, darkness that had weight and purpose. I felt it settling into my bones, changing something fundamental about how I existed in the world. When I opened my eyes, the sepulchre looked different, the shadows deeper and more welcoming, like they recognized me as kin now. That's when I understood that the armor, the powers, the abilities, those weren't gifts Nocturnal was giving me. They were her marking her property, like a brand on livestock, like a seal on a document. I belonged to her now in a way that transcended any oath I could speak or break. The other Daedric Princes, they collect souls too. Hircine takes werewolves. Molag Bal claims those he corrupts. Hermaeus Mora traps seekers of forbidden knowledge. But most of them, you have to really work at it. Make deliberate choices that damn you. The Nightingale Oath is different. It's presented as an opportunity, a chance to join an elite order, to gain power and influence. Carlia made it sound like we were being invited into something special, something rare, and we were, I suppose. Rare is one word for it. Trapped is another. I started researching after that, trying to find any accounts of Nightingales who'd served their time and been released. The histories are vague at best, deliberately obscured at worst. The Nightingales have existed for over 100 years in their current form, maybe longer depending on which stories you believe. There should be records of former members, people who served Nocturnal and then retired, moved on, lived normal lives. There aren't. Every Nightingale I can find mention of either died in service or simply vanished from record, not died of old age in their beds surrounded by family. Vanished like they walked into shadow one day and never walked out. Gallus wrote a book about the Nightingales before he died, a record of what we are and what we do. I've read it a dozen times now, looking for loopholes, for any hint that the contract could be fulfilled and ended. He wrote that we serve her without prayer, without charity, without celebration, that our bond is a business transaction with simple, binding terms. Guard the Twilight Sepulchre against threats, and in return, we use our abilities as we see fit. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Sounds like something with defined parameters, something that could be completed. But here's what Gallus didn't write, or maybe couldn't write because he didn't know yet. The terms of completion are entirely up to Nocturnal. She decides when a Nightingale has fulfilled their contract. She decides when you've done enough. And the Lady of Mystery, the Daedric Prince, whose entire nature is to be unknowable and enigmatic, she doesn't exactly publish her criteria for release. Gallus served for years, decades maybe, and died still bound. His spirit remained as a sentinel, still serving, still guarding. Only after I returned the skeleton key did Nocturnal decide his contract was complete. that he could finally enter the Evergloam proper. 25 years of death, of standing guard in that dark temple before she released him to his eternity of service in her realm. That's the part that keeps me awake at night. Not that I'll serve in death. They told me that much, but that there's a probation period, a time where you're still tied to the sepulchre itself, a ghost bound to defend a shrine until Nocturnal subjectively decides you've done enough. How long? Years? Centuries? Until she gets bored? Until she needs a replacement? The contract says, until she deems it fulfilled, which means it's fulfilled exactly, never unless she feels generous. I talked to Enthir about it once, carefully, hypothetically. He was friends with Gallus, close enough that Gallus broke into his laboratory once, and they ended up bonding over it, instead of Enthir calling the guards. Enthir's a scholar, deals in magical artifacts and ancient knowledge, the kind of person who might understand Daedric contracts. I asked him what he knew about breaking oaths with princes. He went quiet for a long time, then told me that Daedric contracts aren't like mortal ones. They're written into the fabric of reality itself, bound by forces that predate the current era, maybe predate mortality itself. Breaking them isn't a matter of finding a loophole or paying a penalty. It's like trying to break the law of gravity or stop time. You can't. The universe doesn't work that way. Then he asked me if I was asking about Gallus, about what happened to him. I said, yes. Let him think I was just curious about my predecessor. Enthir said Gallus knew what he was getting into, that he'd accepted the terms, fully aware of the cost. But that, in his last few weeks, Gallus had seemed troubled, like he'd discovered something about the oath that changed how he viewed it. He'd been investigating Mercer, yes, but Enthir thought there was something else, something Gallus had found about Nocturnal or the Nightingales that he wouldn't share even with his closest friend. I went back to Gallus's journal, the encoded one we found in his effects. Most of it deals with Mercer's betrayal, his suspicions about the stolen coin, his certainty that Mercer had desecrated the Twilight Sepulchre. But there's one line, easy to miss among all the rest, that haunts me. He wrote that using his Nightingale talents against his own kind was the furthest thought from his mind when he took the oath. Not that he wouldn't do it, but that the possibility hadn't occurred to him, like the oath came with implications he hadn't considered, applications he hadn't foreseen. What did he mean by his own kind? Other Nightingales? Other thieves? Or something else? Something about what we become when we take the oath? The dreams are getting worse. Every night now I walk through the Evergloam, that realm of perpetual twilight where Nocturnal rules. I see the Shade Perilous, her fortress of shadow rising from dark forests. I see Crow's Wood, where intelligent crows serve as her messengers and spies. I see souls that have become shadows, beings who crave light but can never enjoy it, who sleep but never feel rested, who exist in a state of constant yearning for something they can no longer have. Are those the former Nightingales? The souls of thieves who served their time and now walk those purple landscapes forever? If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. Would you take the power knowing the cost? Would you sign away your eternity for the ability to move like darkness, to succeed at heists that should be impossible, to never worry about getting caught? Because I'm telling you now, from the inside of this contract, that the power is real and intoxicating, and I use it every single day. And I'm also telling you that I wake up some mornings, not sure if I'm in Skyrim or the Evergloam, not sure if the shadows in my room are just absence of light, or if they're tendrils of Nocturnal's realm bleeding through into mine. Brynjolf doesn't talk about it much. He took the oath same as me, stood in that chamber and spoke the words, drank from the Ebonmere, and received his power. But he seems less affected, or maybe just better at hiding it. He focuses on the guild, on rebuilding what Mercer destroyed, on restoring our reputation and our fortune. Maybe that's the key, staying busy enough that you don't think about the future. Or maybe he's made peace with it in a way I haven't yet, accepted that his afterlife was decided the moment he put on that armor. I tried asking Nocturnal once, at her shrine in the cistern that appeared after we completed our quest. The shrine offers a blessing, makes you harder to detect for a few hours, practical and useful. I knelt before it and asked, not out loud but in my head, how long my service would last. How many years of life, how many years of death standing guard, how many eternities walking the Evergloam before I could rest. The shadows around the shrine seemed to deepen, and I felt her attention on me like a weight, like being underwater. But there was no answer, just amusement, maybe, or indifference. The Lady of Mystery doesn't explain herself. That's her entire nature, to be unknowable, incomprehensible. Asking her for clarity is like asking darkness to be bright. Mercer understood this, I think. That's why he stole the skeleton key. It wasn't just about the power to unlock doors, or the ability to steal from the guild vault. The skeleton key unlocks potential, removes limitations, opens pathways that should remain closed. He was trying to unlock himself from the oath, trying to find a way out of the contract he'd signed. Did it work? For 25 years, he lived free, or as free as someone can be, while running from a Daedric Prince. He used that key to become more than he should have been, faster, stronger, more skilled than any thief had a right to be. But in the end, when Carlia's arrow found his throat and he fell into that dark water, did his soul go to the Evergloam anyway? Did Nocturnal claim him despite his betrayal, or is there some special punishment reserved for oathbreakers? I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the worst part about serving the Lady of Mystery. Every answer leads to more questions. Every certainty dissolves into shadow when you look too closely. Maybe Mercer's soul is trapped somewhere between Nirn and Oblivion, unable to enter the Evergloam but unable to move on to anywhere else. Maybe he's already there, serving as a sentinel like Gallus was, standing eternal watch as punishment for his betrayal. Or maybe, and this is the thought that terrifies me most, maybe he found a way out, and that's why Nocturnal let him run for so long, because his freedom was an illusion, a test, a way to make the rest of us think escape was possible when it never was. The luck is real, though. I have to keep reminding myself of that. The guild's fortunes have turned around completely since we restored the skeleton key to its proper place. Jobs that would have gone wrong succeed instead. Guards look away at just the right moment. Locks that should hold fast open smoothly. It's subtle, never obvious, enough to be called magic, but it's there. Nocturnal's influence flowing through the Ebonmere, tipping the odds in favor of every thief in Tamriel. That's her gift to the world, the reason she allows the portal to remain open. And we Nightingales are the ones who keep it that way, who guard that gateway, who ensure her influence can flow freely. It's a symbiotic relationship, I suppose. She gives us power and luck. We give her loyal servants and protection for her shrine. Everyone benefits, except that symbiotic relationships between mortals and Daedric Princes have a way of favoring the immortal party. She's eternal, unchanging, patient beyond human comprehension. We're temporary, fleeting, desperate for meaning in the handful of years we have. Of course she gets the better end of the bargain. Of course the contract is weighted in her favor. She told Carlia as much when we took the oath, said the terms were definitely weighted in her favor when Carlia offered 2 new Nightingales. Nocturnal doesn't hide what she is. We just don't listen carefully enough. Asterisk, if this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. Asterisk. The shadows whisper to me in a voice that sounds like my own now. They tell me things I shouldn't know, secrets about people I've never met, locations of treasures I never sought. Is that Nocturnal's influence, her knowledge bleeding through the connection we share? Or is it me changing, becoming something more shadow than flesh, more Evergloam than Nirn? I catch myself sometimes standing in darkness longer than necessary, feeling more comfortable there than in light, more myself in shadow than in sun. That's not natural. That's not how mortals are supposed to feel. But I'm not entirely mortal anymore, am I? The moment I drank from the Ebonmere, the moment that cold shadow poured into me and changed something fundamental, I became something else. An agent of Nocturnal, a Nightingale, property of the Lady of Twilight. My soul has her mark on it now, visible or not, indelible and eternal. When my time comes, when age or violence or simple bad luck finally catches up with me, that mark will guide me, not to Sovngarde, not to the void, not to whatever afterlife my ancestors might have believed in, to the Evergloam, to her. I found something recently that changed everything I thought I understood about this oath. There's a book, ancient and half-crumbled, in the Arcaneum at the College of Winterhold. Most scholars ignore it because it's written in a language that predates modern Tamrielic, symbols that look almost like Daedric script, but aren't quite. The librarian there, Urag, he told me the language comes from Ebon Stadmont, ruins carved with writing older than any known civilization. Older than the Dwemer, older than the Aelids, maybe older than Oblivion itself. The interesting part, the part that made my blood run cold when I read it, is that this language has connections to Nocturnal. The inscriptions at Ebon Stadmont feature crows everywhere. Her symbol and the magic in those words can only be used by mortals, not by Daedra themselves. Nocturnal provided this ancient language to mortals for specific purposes, binding purposes, contracts that transcend normal Daedric pacts. The Nightingale Oath isn't just a deal with a Daedric prince. It's written in a language that existed before the princes themselves, using magic that predates the current era of reality. We didn't just promise our service, we encoded ourselves into the fundamental structure of Nocturnal's existence. That's why Mercer couldn't break free, even with the skeleton key, even with its power to unlock anything, to remove any limitation. You can't unlock something that's woven into the fabric of what you are. He wasn't trying to pick a lock, he was trying to unmake part of himself, the part that had been fundamentally altered by speaking those ancient words in that chamber beneath Riften. The skeleton key could unlock his potential, make him stronger and faster and more skilled than he should be. But it couldn't unlock him from Nocturnal because the connection was written in a language the key itself didn't understand, couldn't comprehend, couldn't touch. I went back to the Twilight Sepulchre alone last week. Told the guild I was checking on security, making sure everything remained protected. Really, I needed to see it again, to stand before the Ebonmere and understand what I'd done. The Sepulchre is always twilight inside, always that perfect balance between light and dark that never tips one way or the other. It's beautiful in a way that makes you uncomfortable, like looking at something you shouldn't be able to see, something not meant for mortal eyes. The Nightingale Sentinels are still there, the corrupted ones who lost themselves when the Ebonmere was closed. They're docile now, no longer hostile, but they're not alive either. They drift through the halls like smoke, like echoes of people who used to exist. I tried talking to one, asking if they remembered their name, their life before. It turned toward me with eyes that were just shadow, with a face that kept shifting like I was seeing it through disturbed water. It opened its mouth and whispered something in that ancient language, those pre-Daedric words that hurt to hear. Then it drifted away, back to its eternal patrol of a temple it no longer understands guarding. That's my future. Maybe not immediately, maybe not for years or decades, if I'm lucky and careful and smart. But eventually, when I die, my spirit will manifest here as a sentinel, bound to guard this place until Nocturnal decides I've served enough time. How long did the others serve before they forgot themselves? How long before I'm just another shadow drifting through these halls, unable to remember my own name, knowing only that I must defend this shrine against intruders I won't recognize as threats, or friends, or anything with meaning. And after that, after however many centuries or millennia of standing guard, after Nocturnal finally deems my contract fulfilled, then comes the Evergloam, the realm proper, not just this temple that connects to it. I'll walk those forests of perpetual twilight, exist in that place where shadows have weight and substance, where the boundary between light and dark is the only reality that matters. I'll serve her there in whatever capacity she requires, stealing, skulking, existing in the spaces between forever. That's not hyperbole or exaggeration. Forever, eternity. An endless stretch of time that makes mortal lifespans look like eye blinks. Carlia seems content with it. She talks about serving Nocturnal like it's an honor, like being chosen as a Nightingale is a privilege beyond measure. Maybe for her it is. She'll be reunited with Gallus in the Evergloam, spend eternity with the man she loved, both of them serving together in shadow. That's something, I suppose. A form of immortality, a guarantee that death isn't the end, but a transition. Some people would kill for that certainty, that knowledge that they'll continue existing in some form beyond the grave. But I remember what Gallus told me, those last words before he finally entered the Evergloam after 25 years of standing watch. He said he felt himself slipping away even before the corruption took the other sentinels, felt his identity draining out of him the longer he remained bound to the sepulchre. What if that never stops? What if entering the Evergloam doesn't restore what was lost but continues the process? What if becoming one with the shadows isn't a poetic description, but a literal one? What if we don't serve in the Evergloam as ourselves, but as extensions of Nocturnal, as pieces of her will made manifest, as shadows that used to be people but aren't anymore? I've started testing my limits, carefully, quietly, not telling anyone what I'm doing. I wanted to know if the oath constrained me in ways beyond the obvious. Can I retire from the guild? Yes, technically, though the urge to return to thieving is strong, almost compulsive. Can I remove the Nightingale armor? Yes, but it calls to me, whispers that I'm vulnerable without it, that I need its protection. Can I refuse to return to the Twilight Sepulchre if summoned? I don't know. I haven't been summoned yet, haven't tested what happens if I ignore the pull toward that place. Can I warn others not to take the oath? You're hearing this now, aren't you? So apparently yes, I can speak about it, can tell people what I've learned and what I've lost and what waits for me at the end. Nocturnal doesn't silence her nightingales. Why would she? We're proof of her power, examples of what mortals will trade for a taste of the infinite. Every thief who hears about us and dreams of becoming one is another potential soul for her collection. Our existence serves her purposes even when we try to warn people away. The worst part, the absolute worst part, is that I would do it again. Even knowing everything I know now, even understanding the true cost, even seeing my future stretched out before me in an endless twilight of service and shadow, I would still take the oath. The power is that intoxicating, the feeling of moving through darkness like I'm part of it, of succeeding at impossible tasks, of being more than just another mortal scratching out a living in a harsh world. It's worth it. That's how good Nocturnal's hook is. She doesn't force anyone. She just offers power to people desperate enough to take it, and the terms seem reasonable until you're already bound and it's far too late to reconsider. I think about Mercer a lot now. Used to hate him for what he did to Gallus, to Carlia, to the guild. Still do, in a way. But I understand him now in a way I didn't before. He saw the trap, saw the endless stretch of service ahead of him, and he tried to break free. Use the skeleton key, Nocturnal's own artifact, to try to sever the connection she'd forged. He failed, obviously, ended up dead in a flooded Dwemer ruin with Carlia's arrow in his throat. But he tried. He spent 25 years living like the oath didn't matter, like he could steal from Nocturnal herself and get away with it. Maybe that was his real goal all along, not wealth or power, but just proving that he could defy her, even temporarily, even knowing it wouldn't last. Did his soul end up in the Evergloam? I like to think Nocturnal has something special planned for Oathbreakers, some corner of her realm where the shadows are darker and colder and the twilight never even pretends at warmth. But honestly, She probably just added him to her collection like any other Nightingale. His betrayal was nothing personal to her, nothing that would warrant special attention. We're all just assets in her ledger, souls she's acquired through contracts written in languages older than morality. Whether we serve faithfully like Gallus or betray her like Mercer, we all end up in the same place eventually. The Evergloam doesn't care about your mortal choices. It only cares that you're bound to it. I went to Sovngarde once, like I mentioned. Faced down Alduin the World Eater helped end a threat that would have consumed all of Tamriel. When I stood at those gates, when soon asked by what right I claimed entry to the Hall of Valor, I almost lied, almost said I was there by right of my Thu'um, my voice, my dragon soul. But some instinct, some need to know the truth, made me mention the Nightingales instead. Soon's expression, that look of understanding, mixed with something that might have been sympathy, that told me everything. Even the Nordic guardian of the greatest afterlife, their culture knows, recognized that my path was set, that no matter what heroic deeds I accomplished in life, my soul had a destination already marked on it. He let me through anyway, let me walk those halls and feast with heroes and fight alongside the greatest warriors the Nords have ever produced. It was temporary, of course, just for that battle against Alduin, but for those few hours, I got to see what I was giving up. The warmth of Shore's Hall, the camaraderie of warriors who'd earned their place through valor, the simple joy of being somewhere you belonged by right, rather than by contract. Then I had to leave, had to return to Nirn, and continue my life, knowing that none of that awaits me. My eternity is twilight and shadow and service, always service, never rest. The shadows follow me everywhere now. I'll be in the marketplace in bright daylight, and I'll feel them at my back, patient, waiting. I'll be picking a lock, and for just a moment, I'll see the Evergloam overlaid on the real world, see those purple forests where the trees cast shadows too long. I'll close my eyes and hear whispers, in that ancient language, words I don't understand, but that my soul responds to, like it's hearing its own name called. The boundary between here and there gets thinner every day. Sometimes I wonder if I'm still fully in Nirn, or if I'm already partially in her realm, existing in both spaces at once, transitioning slowly from mortal to shadow. Is this what happened to all the Nightingales before me? This gradual dissolution of the self, this slow merging with shadow, this feeling that you're becoming less solid and more concept with each passing day? Did they feel themselves changing, feel the Evergloam pulling at them even in life, or did it hit them all at once when they died? I don't know. There's no one left to ask. Every Nightingale who came before is either trapped as a sentinel in the sepulchre or has moved on to the Evergloam, and neither state allows for easy conversation. I'm leaving this account, this confession, this warning, because someone needs to know the truth. The Nightingales aren't just an elite order of thieves. We're not just agents of a Daedric Prince. We're souls that signed themselves away, written our names in a ledger kept in a realm of perpetual twilight, marked ourselves as Nocturnal's property in a language that predates the current age of the world. The power is real, the abilities are genuine, the luck flows true, but the cost is everything you are and everything you'll ever be, traded for a few decades of supernatural skill, followed by an eternity of service in a realm where the sun never rises and never sets. They call us Nightingales, like we're songbirds who perform in darkness. But birds sing because they choose to, because they're free and alive and expressing joy. We sing because we're bound to, because the contract demands it, because Nocturnal owns our voices and everything else about us. We're not Nightingales. We're shadows with delusions of autonomy, darkness given temporary form, echoes of people who used to exist before they drank from the Ebonmere and changed fundamentally into something else. The armor still fits perfectly. The shadows still welcome me like family. The locks still open at my touch. I still use these gifts every single day, still revel in the power, still feel that rush of satisfaction when I succeed at tasks that should be impossible. And every night, I dream of the Evergloam, walk those twilit forests, feel myself becoming more comfortable there than here. The transition is already happening. Death will just make it official. Nocturnal is patient. She's been collecting nightingales for over 100 years in Skyrim alone, probably longer in other provinces, maybe for all of history under different names and forms. She's in no hurry. She has eternity to wait, and so do we now. Our oaths were struck, our fates were cast, and the Evergloam waits for us all. The Lady of Mystery keeps her contracts, keeps her word, keeps her souls forever. I thought I was joining an elite Thieves Guild. I actually sold my afterlife for a few decades of supernatural power, and the shadows, they remind me of that debt every single day. They whisper in voices that sound like my own, telling me that I'm already hers, that I was hers from the moment I spoke those words in Nightingale Hall, that I'll be hers until the stars go dark and beyond. The Nightingale pact isn't a pact at all. It's a purchase agreement, and I'm the merchandise.